All right, guys, welcome to part 2. We did number 1, we did number 2, and we worked some problems. So we're going to do the same thing here. The only difference is with this one, it gives you some answer choices, and you have to determine by doing the opposite, or like multiplying or rearranging the problem or the equation to find what goes in the blank. So with that, I would start with D, and the reason why is because it already has the divisor, the dividend, and it already has the divisor. So look at D, and 60 is our dividend, so it's going to be in the house, and we're dividing it by 2.5. Well, what I do to the divisor, I'm moving it one place, I must do it to the dividend. So I'm going to have to add an extra 0, and because I did move that decimal on both, that decimal stays right here. Okay, so how many times can 25 go into 600? Well, I'm unsure, but I know that 25 times 4 quarters, 25 times 4 is 100. That gets me somewhere. And so if I know that, then I know that 25 times 3 is 75. I know that 25 times 2, I'm going backwards here, is 50. And if I know 25 times 2, that also tells me that if 25 times 2 is 50, then 25 times 20 is 500. That gets me awfully close to 600. So I'm going to use partial quotients, and I'm going to say, okay, 25 times 20 is 500. I'm going to subtract, and I'm left with 100. Well, I already know what equals 100. 25 times 4. I'm going to add that partial quotient, and I subtract, I get a remainder of 0. I'm going to add these two together, and I'm going to write 24 there. So the whole number of 24 is my answer for D, and I can cross it out. Okay, so now it gets a little tricky because we've got to figure out what we can do to solve the problem. So if you look at A, you've got two, like C and A, they're the same. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply these because we're looking for the dividend. You're going to multiply the ones that you look for the dividend, and you're going to divide the ones where you look for the divisor. Okay, so I'm going to start with A. 0.7 times 13. I moved this decimal one place, but I'm going to have to move it back into my quotient. 7 times 3 is 21. Drop my 1, carry my 2. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. Now I'm going to move my decimal from here back to the middle where it was, because I moved it one time, so I'm going to move it one time back. So my answer for A is 9.1. Look at C. We just did one just like it, so let's look at C. I've got 1.3 times 70. So I know that 0 times 3 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0, but now I have to add a placeholder because I'm moving to the tens. 7 times 3 is 21, drop my 1, carry my 2. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 2 is 9. So when I add these together, I get 910. But I have a decimal here that I've moved one place to the right to make it a whole number, so I've got to move it one place, one place to the right, to the left, which gives me a whole number of 91. Oh, I crossed off the wrong one. And that is C. So I use 9.1 over there for A. This one is C. Let's look at B. B is the ones that confuse us, but we're given the dividend. So we know 0.6 or 6/10 is going to be in the house. So 0.6. We're going to divide that by 2.5. Okay, what I do to the divisor, I must do to the dividend. I've moved it once here, and I'm going to move it once here. So my decimal is going to stay here, but I know 25 can't go into 6. But if I go one more place and put a 0 in this hole, 25 can go into 60. How many times can 25 go into 60? It can go into 60 2 times, because 25 times 2 is 50. So I'm going to write that 2 above that 60. And then I'm going to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 6 minus 5 is 1. So now I've got 10. But I'm going to have to add another 0. So right now my decimal's here, and that's okay. I'm going to ignore it for a minute. we'll write another 0 because after every decimal, if there's no numbers there, there's understood zeros. It doesn't change it. It's just placeholders, basically. I'm going to bring it down. 25 can go into 100 4 times because 25 times 4 is 100. So this is kind of the standard algorithm. This is, this is not our standard, but this is the easiest way to solve this problem I found. So, and I know 25 times 4 is 100. I subtract, and I get 0. So my decimal right now is right here. But this is with the extra move. Okay? So I need to move it back 1 place. So my answer here is 24 hundredths. And I'm going to check myself on this one because I've messed up on these before, and I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So 0.6 times 0.24. Oops. 0.24. Yes, the answer is 0.24. Okay, or 24 hundredths. All right? Cool beans. All right, so we can cross that out. The next problem. Okay, it says Heidi has $4.55. She needs to buy some bolts at a hardware store, and the bolts are 13 cents each. Part A asks us which division equation and related multiplication could Heidi use to find how many bolts she can buy. Well, I've got two numbers up here. Typically, my dividend is larger than my divisor. So $4.55, that's how much each bolt cost. I mean, that's how much she has. And each bolt costs 13 cents. So we want to see how many times 13 can go into $4.55. So my problem would be $4.55 divided by 13 cents equals what? Then a process of elimination, you can figure this answer out. I'm looking for $4.55 divided by 13, and I see right here that it would be D. And just to double check, if I reverse this, I would have 13 times something gives me a product of $4.55 because this is how much she has, and if it took all of it, we know each bolt costs 13 cents. How many bolts can she buy to get our product and spend all of her money? Okay, so the answer is D. So now I got to figure out how many bolts did she buy. So I'm going to divide 13 cents into $4.55. I'm going to move this 1 place, 2 places, and what I do to the divisor I have to do inside. So 1, 2, and I have now 13 divided by 55. And because I did move that decimal on both, my decimal can stay right here at the end, so I know I'm going to get a whole number. So I'm going to start by writing my 13s. My multiples of 13. 13 times 1 is 13. If I know 13 times 1, then I know 13 times 10 is 130. 13 times 2 is 26. If I know 13 times 2, then I know 13 times 20 is 260. Okay? 13 times 3 is 39. And 13 times 30 would be 390. 390 is awfully close to 455, so I'm going to use partial quotients. So I'm going to say, okay, 13 times 30 gives me 390. I subtract. 5 minus 0 is 5. I can't take 9 from 5, but I can regroup. Make this well, my pen's messing up. Make that a 3. Make this a 15. 15 minus 9 is, I believe, 7. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Nope, it's 6. So 6. I'm left with 65. Because 3 minus 3 is 0. So now I've got to figure out how many times can 13 go into 65. Well, I see 39 here, so I'm going to use 3. See how close we can get. Subtract. Can't take 9 from 15, but I can make it 15 and change that 6 to a 5. 15 minus 9 is 6. 5 minus 3 is 2, so I'm left with 26. I know 13 times 2 is 26. I subtract, and I get 0. So now I can add these partial quotients together. 30 plus 3 is 33, plus 2 more is 35. So Heidi can buy 35 bolts. Okay? All right. Last question. So here we have Derek has 4 8 8/10 pounds of potting soil. he puts equal amounts of soil in 8 pots. So he has 8 groups here. He has 8 pots. He wants to put the same amount in each pot. He draws a model, and it's asking us if it's correct. So the way I would start it is I would divide 4.8 divided by 8 and see what I get. And my number, my quotient, will tell me how many tenths will be in each group. And then we can verify if he's correct or not. So I'm going to move my decimal in my dividend one place. If I do that, I'm going to have to move it back one place. But I know 8 can go into 48 a certain amount of times because it's a multiple of 8. So if I know 8 times 5, just easy, is 40, I can use that as partial quotient. So I'm going to say, okay, 8 times 5 is 40. I subtract and I get 8. What goes into 8? 1 does. 8 times 1 is 8. And I get 8, I subtract, and I get a remainder of 0. Now I can add this 5 and this 1 to give me an answer of 6, or a quotient of 6. So because my decimal's here, I've got to move it back because I didn't do it to the divisor. So I know now that he's going to have 6 tenths in 8 groups. So now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to count my groups, my tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 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 Here's 6. So far he's on a roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's 6. So now I got to make sure he has 8 groups of 6 tenths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So yes, his model is correct. But why? Sorry, I'm writing kind of sloppy. Because he has 6 tenths in 8 groups. And this is proven by our work right here. Okay, so study this, look over this. You will do well, I believe, and I will answer any questions that you may have. So please just study this. Remember, what you do to the divisor, you have to do inside the house, and then your decimal stays the same. If you only move the decimal in the dividend, then you have to place that decimal back where it came from. Those are the 2 most important things. All right? So I hope this helps.